Welcome to Pipe Classic 15, the final ultimate Pipe Classic. We are here live in the Bern Gallery down here in the basement. My name is Eli Harrington, aka Vermontawana. I am here with my co-host, Raj, aka Raj and Tech. Raj, say what's up with the folks.
How you guys doing?
All right, we are pumped. We have been doing this live in various basements and sketchy apartments around Burlington, Vermont for the last couple years in COVID protocol. But we, like the folks right upstairs who are bumping above us, are back in person in Burlington. The Pipe Classic is going down. The energy is already crazy. First day, it's Monday. We've had some shakeups. We've had some schedule changes. But Raj, remind these folks what we are doing here. This is the biggest, the best of the best, the slam dunk competition, the all-star game. This is the World Pipe Making Championship, the Pipe Classic, the original, and this is the last year. So Tell us kind of what's going into this. I mean, we've had some time off from COVID. You and I have been hanging, obviously, doing our chicken thing. But like for people who are maybe new to Pipe Classic, are not familiar, let's give these folks a little review of kind of what the rules are, what we're doing here in Burlington, what is this crazy thing, and why are these people from all over the world right upstairs?
Sure. So we'll start with the rules. It has to be made in the 12 hours. Each competitor gets 2 6-hour heats. One starts the evening, and then it finishes up in the morning the next day. The entire thing has to be made in the Bern Gallery. It must function as a smoking device in some way, shape, or form. And
let me just be clear here. I look like a cop, so I'm going to be the one. I'll say the rules here. There's some things we can and cannot say on the stream for the purposes of our overlords at YouTube and the various tech companies. But when we're talking about glass, when we're talking about pipe, we're talking about functional art here. We're talking about things that are legal here in Vermont and in various other states coming together. So we're going to talk about function, and that is the use of this pipe. We're probably not going to go into a lot of detail other than talking about water, dry, the materials that are being used, and the artists. So truss, we know, right? We all know what we're talking about here, but when we're talking about function, how these pipes are used, we're going to keep it vague so that we can be specific, talking about the art and the artists as we go through the week. So, Raj, sorry to cut you off, but
so
hit us with those.
Rules.
Those.
Yes.
Just give us the big 4 rules one more time, because this only lasts 1 week. It all happens here live in person, wherever you are watching this now or in perpetuity, 1,000 years later after the nuclear fallout. What are the 4 main rules for this week here at Pipe Classic?
It has to be made in the Bern Gallery.
Okay.
In 12 hours.
Okay.
From scratch.
Okay.
And it must function.
And it must function.
Yes. So there's no pre-made prep of any sort. Everything starts from raw material.
Beautiful. And so, with that, we have got a bunch of sponsors who are making this possible, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously, and a ton of people supply this glass. We're going to be talking about them throughout the week. We're going to be interviewing them. We're going to be spotlighting. They're going to present different segments. But a big shout out to Glass Torch Technologies, to Mood Mats, making this happen. They've been holding us down for years here, for almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
As it turns out. And we've got some special prizes this year and some surprises that we are not even privy to yet. So we're not kidding when we are trying to gas you up talking about these prizes and what these folks are competing for. We have not even been told yet. It's that top secret. So the hype is real. Now, Raj, again, give these folks a little bit of background here, because you and I are going to be on this mic all week. Clearly, I'm kind of the straight guy, going to try to move things along, but you've got some experience behind the torch yourself. Mm-hmm. You're going to be doing some things here throughout the week, so give folks a little bit of sense of who you are and what you do and where you're from, real quick.
Okay, so I've been blowing glass for about 12 years and have seen many facets of the industry, and have been coming to Pipe Classic for almost a decade, and have seen many of the competitors that are in this particular competition in past competitions, or watched them come up over the years and have become well acquainted with their styles and what they bring to the table.
Beautiful. So for the folks watching, we're going to be with you all week. We're like the, we're the Predator meme right here. We're doing the thing, the handshake. Raj is going to be the glass expert. He's going to be doing some in-depth interviews, including talking to some artists. And we definitely encourage you, check out the Instagram page, the YouTube channel. We have done a lot of stuff with our friends Tyler and Steven, wizards behind the cameras here in the last couple years. So we got a lot of archive interviews with artists that we'll be referring to. But in the meantime, we've got live action upstairs. I don't know if folks who are watching here, maybe you guys have split box going, and maybe we can show. But we've actually got Hickory, Hick Dog, and Coil actively on the torches right now. So as we go through this week, you'll get more and more familiar with the format. But basically, this is a marathon. These artists all have a set amount of time in which to complete these pieces. Like we said, it has to be done from scratch. It has to be made here. 12 total hours, right? So you get one marathon session in the evening, one marathon session in the daytime. They're split up throughout the week. And that means that you as the competitor have to pace yourself, right? So you've had time, you've been thinking about this. Raj, give these people a little bit of insight. For these artists who come into this, right? You've talked to all of them from years past. You don't just hop behind the torch and kind of start putting stuff together, right? Give me an idea of what an artist, and especially somebody I know like Hick Dog is somebody who's really out there at a lot of expos. You know, Hickory, Coil, all these folks are professionals. Give me a sense of kind of what the planning is and what they're thinking going into these.
I mean, there is weeks of their mental space that's being occupied by Pipe Classic. From the time that they get accepted until the time that they come here, it is kind of one of those all-consuming things. Like, it's in the back of your mind, just constantly. Every time you go to bed, when you wake up, like, what am I going to make? How am I going to make it in 12 hours? What compromises am I going to make? And all these little micro calculations that go into, you know, getting here on time with all their stuff. And
all right, listen, we'll get into the getting here on time thing. That's a whole other question, all right?
Yeah.
We don't judge people based on timeliness. That is not
timeliness
is not one of the factors here, at least getting here. You do have to finish your piece in time, and as you will see, especially later on in this week, there's a real crunch. When you get to the end of your heat, you got to finish that piece, and you have to go move it and set it. Mm-hmm. So that's a part of this competition not to be taken for granted, because you can do everything perfectly, drop it at the end, and you are done.
Yeah.
Now, I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned before talking about being on time, which all of us who are involved in functional glass understand how hard that is. But let's talk a little bit about selection process, right? So you mentioned that you have to get chose, essentially, if you want to be out here on these Bern Gallery streets in the Pipe Classic. So how does an artist, you know, I mean, the names that we have here are huge, and we'll read them all off to you in 1 minute in case you're not already familiar. But talk a little bit about that process, because, you know, you see artists come and go. I know we've got Kurt B, who was here involved in, you know, the first, you know, original Pipe Classics and are here years and years later. A lot of these other folks too.
Well, let's start with the people who are automatic ins.
Okay.
Okay, so when you come to Pipe Classic for the first time, you're automatically in for the next year. You get 2 years. And if you don't get first place after the 2 years, I believe you have to wait 5 years to be allowed back in. And the only way to break that is if you keep winning first place, which has happened.
Right, yes.
And
yeah, shout out to the Crunk Dynasty.
Yes.
But also, so you mentioned that. So there are only 12 artists. We have done the Cyber Pipe Showdown, which was an interesting wrinkle that we did, you know, thanks to, I don't know if we want to say the name of the virus on this screen. We'll keep everything super cool here. But due to geographic, locational differences and public health concerns, we did a whole Cyber Pipe Showdown. Mm-hmm. One of our competitors this year, Windstar Glass, actually won that competition. So we're going to be really excited to talk to her and talk a little bit about that. But generally speaking, you know, it is a really small elite club of artists who have been part of this competition, which we were just saying, you know, Tito, Sarah, the Bern Gallery crew, all these folks, Jeff, RIP Jeff's appendix, everybody who's been making this possible, everybody upstairs, for years and years. Like, this has been going on since 2006, you know, and it's really a very elite collection of people. So I know we reference this, we talk about the All-Star game, but I think we've talked in past interviews with Tito about this is kind of the dunk competition.
Yes, and the thing is, you know, they're all like battle hardened. They're not going to, you know, if something goes wrong, it's not going to phase them mentally. Like, all these artists have been there before. They've lost pieces at critical moments, or something, you know, just didn't go the way they thought. And everyone in this competition this year is highly adaptable and knows how to push forward. And I think for that reason, the level of competition this year is higher than it's ever been.
Well, and that is the idea. We are in a transitional phase, and this is the last Pipe Classic that we're doing. In the same way, we've gone through a bunch of different iterations the last couple years. And again, a big shout out again, Glass Torch Technologies and Mood Mats for holding it down for a long time here, as well as our other sponsors who we will shout out individually and throughout the week as well. But let's talk a little bit about kind of that format and that challenge, because we use the analogy of athletics a lot this week. You know, I mean, we're here kind of doing a sports center type show, talking about this breakdown and talking about these artists who we do still have live on the torches here. And it is really a great experience because just like live sports, we've had people here in the Bern Gallery here in Burlington, Vermont, dropping by all day throughout the day. You can actually purchase a judge's pass. You can purchase a spectator's pass. There are tons of parts. I mean, the part you guys see online, the part that happens upstairs, is like the tip of the iceberg. There are dinners, there are parties. So highly encourage you, check those out and really get involved. But talk a little bit kind of about this idea of competitive pipe making, and like competitive art, because this is really a unique thing. And this is something that, people have seen really unique glass pieces before, different function. A lot of people have that friend. But the idea of doing this in this atmosphere, just kind of give us, again, that sort of pressure that's on these people, all the different factors that go in, starting from even just like the challenges of traveling as a glass blower. I don't think people realize, even setting this up, there's gas, there's torches, there's like, that part seems obvious, but if you're a competitor, you're gonna make your own piece here from scratch.
Yeah.
You gotta bring materials, you gotta bring all your stuff. So like, how do you travel as a glass blower?
I mean, it can be tricky because, the torches, they do trigger the TSA little wands and stuff, and, usually you just explain to them what it is and they let you go. But, they can lose your luggage. There's so many things that can go wrong in between leaving your house and getting here. And, there's that aspect of it. There's, the different materials that are available at the time when you want to compete. Some things might be sold out. Some things are maybe just gone or broken, or, maybe you had a big piece and it broke in shipping or something, and now you have to deal with that.
Well, and that's kind of a big part when we talk about these different factors with the different artists and what kind of separates somebody's style from somebody else's style. A lot of it is the materials that they're using, right? So that's another part of this is thing about if you are looking for one specific color, or piece of equipment, and it doesn't make it through, or you can't get it, what is the replacement? Is there a replacement option? Sort of what's your backup? So I know a lot of folks will even come to this competition with, a first plan, a second plan, even maybe a third backup plan.
Yeah.
And
the equipment, it does change every year. Like now there's better Bunsen burners than there used to be, and there's better kilns than there used to be. And, so as the equipment gets better, so does the artist's output within that set amount of time.
But that is a big part of the challenge, is that this is kind of like NASCAR, and stock car racing, in that you can bring all of your equipment to some extent, right? You can travel with it, all this, but you're never going to be at your home studio.
Yeah, and even
you
with
have that
NASCAR,
time.
There's a clear winner. It's the guy who crosses the line first. There's this unequivocal.
Right.
And here we have, what's the people's opinion of the finished product, and your performance, and what they gathered from watching you work.
Well, that's a whole other part we got to talk about, is the criteria, right,
Yeah.
of quote unquote who wins this thing, and the judging and the council, because it is a very, again, selective process. You cannot apply for this. You are selected. We have had one exception with the Cyber Pipe Showdown, which was a really neat format, bringing some voting into it and the people into it. But when we're talking about these sort of materials and getting set up to compete, you really are limiting a lot of those factors, because everybody's got to do it here in Burlington, Vermont. Everybody's got to get here. And as much as you can bring your own accessories, bring your own gloves, bring your own music, bring your own headphones, bring your own glasses, maybe bring a cheering section, whatever it is, you still have to do it in the same place as everybody else, standing in front of all of these wonderful sponsor banners that you folks see here on the live stream. and can check out. So,
Yeah.
it is kind of a huge equalizing factor, and it is kind of a specific skill set, right? So, I mean, not all of the artists and, not all the pipe makers want to compete in competitions. Have you talked to glassblowers who don't compete in competitions? I mean, sort of, this is a specific thing and kind
Yes,
of
but everyone here
it's kind of a skill set, right?
Everyone here wants to compete.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, this is a specific skill set in that you have to
Yeah.
not only be an artist, but like an artist who wants to be part of this athletic kind of challenge, because it
Yeah.
is really even physically a grind for all these people at the end of the week.
And Burlington, Vermont is a little bit humid. The lake is right there, and that can affect people if you come from the desert or you come from living up in the mountains where the air is a little bit thinner.
That's
and
right.
You come here and you might not be prepared for it if you didn't give yourself a couple of days to adjust. That can affect you.
That's right. Can you blow glass at low elevation? We're going to find out this week, which actually is a funny, good segment to talk about our Heat 1 competitors, because two are extremely local. We've got Hickory, who actually hails from down in the hills in southern Vermont, Coyle, representing western Massachusetts, and then we've got Hick Dog, who's out there in the desert, as you mentioned, Phoenix, Arizona, all over the place. So again, everybody's got to get here, even if you are familiar with this Vermont September humidity and 30-degree temperature swings. Getting here is a big deal, and there are challenges. So, you talked about that. Getting here today, we actually had a shakeup right on day number 1 with two competitors swapping places. Now, apparently there was a travel issue, right?
Yep.
And so what happened was one of the competitors wasn't sure if their materials were going to get here, but the camaraderie involved in this. You mentioned these artists, they all know each other.
Yeah.
They've all crossed paths. A lot of them, we'll talk about it throughout the week, are actively doing collaborations, have done collaborations. They're going to meet each other this week and want to do more collaborations after this. Born at a Pipe Classic, which is a really cool thing to see. So, there is a lot of camaraderie among these artists. We had, once today, Ham and Hick Dog. Hick Dog very graciously agreed to swap places with Ham after some travel issues. So, big shout out to those two competitors working that out. But talk about some of these other things that can go wrong, because as we go throughout the week, we'll recap what happened the day before. And we had some action upstairs. I don't want to give away the whole secret, but there's chickens, there's medical attention, there's all sorts of things involved. So we won't spoil the surprise for all the action upstairs, but give us an example of some things that can go wrong throughout this competition.
I mean, the big one, obviously, your piece can break.
Right.
And hopefully it happens early on and gives you a lot of time to compensate for that.
Okay.
The other thing is, you could get hurt somewhere along the lines, or your equipment could stop working at some point.
The technical part of this, I mean, you look at these things that you can kind of get a taste of it when you're watching online, but you got to really be here at the Bern Gallery in Burlington to see this in person. And if you are anywhere within driving range, encourage you to get down here, because I mean, it's hot up there.
Yeah, and
it's crowded. There are hundreds of spectators coming in throughout the day watching these artists perform. There's pressure too.
Mm-hmm. And the amount of resources that go into setting it all up so that every competitor has an equal setup where they all have fresh tanks, and there's a number of people up there that are coordinating all these different aspects of making sure those flames are on when they need to be on,
and having really firm rules too.
Yeah.
I know that there are you want to have exceptions, and throughout the years and, truthfully the decades, literally, of Pipe Classic, there are norms that have been established, there are rules that have been made, probably things that have happened in the past that have informed and say, we're never going to do that again, or hey, we got to do it like this in the future so it's fair for everybody. So hard and fast rules, we talked about them before. Everything is made from scratch. It's made here in the Bern Gallery. It's made in 12 hours, and it must function. And we do really love and appreciate that part of this whole event as well. The functional part, getting people together, the camaraderie. We talked about these artists. Raj, let's talk a little bit, again, this is the last Pipe Classic. We've got a lot of former champions. Give me kind of some broad themes, some things that you're thinking about this week, things that you're looking forward to, whether it be, some of the other events. I know you've got some special exhibits, and there are some really crazy VIP things happening throughout the week. Grab that judge's pass, grab that admission pass if you haven't yet. We've got the wrap-up party on Saturday, Nectars. Get the pass just for that. It'll be worth it. But give me kind of broadly, what are some things that you're thinking about this week? Kind of some themes, maybe with the competitors. What are you sort of expecting? What are you looking at? What are you thinking about this week?
What I really was thinking about this week was highlighting competitors' first hour of competing and the last hour of competing, because how you start and how you finish it really kind of like defines the trajectory of how your piece is going to go. How do you break down your materials in such a way that it's done efficiently, and how do you make certain prep in such a way that it's done efficiently? Like, you don't have to do a huge pull if you only need this much, and things like that. How competitors, and the last hour is always the most exciting. That's when they really get pushed to their limit, and oftentimes have to break rules. I've seen competitors do things that I couldn't believe they got away with. Some people their pieces was sitting out for 20 minutes while they were working someplace, and they just go into a different part of it without any preheating or anything, and it works, and you're like, okay, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of necessity breeds a lot of this innovation, right?
Yeah.
Especially towards the end. And when we talk this week about techniques and about people planning things ahead, a lot of it is limited by what you can get away with in this environment under those time constraints.
And I think a lot of times they don't know what they can get away with until they have to get away with it.
That's right. So, I mean, I think a lot of these folks, they have, a broad blueprint going into it, maybe even some specifics, but a lot of that is kind of, you might know that you're going to make the fish, but you don't know how many scales you're going to have time to put on.
Right.
Or how many fins, or, if you can put on that extra sort of piece here and there. And then once you start going for things, you're kind of committed, and there's no way to go back or shake it up. So, let's give a shout out here. Before we cut away, we want to talk about some of the other heats that we have going on this week. We want to talk about all these artists. We want to shout out some of these sponsors. So, Raj, if you want to maybe give these folks a just preview of the heats that are going down, I will, after every heat, I can hop in and give kind of a shout out to some of the sponsors, because obviously we could not do it. We mentioned Glass Torch Technologies. We mentioned Mood Mats, holding us down from the beginning. Sunset Lake CBD, Higher Elevation, Mr. Z, Vermont companies. Really appreciate them. I don't know if people have seen Mr. Z over my shoulder here throughout, Raj and I out in space. Glass Vegas, really great show where you can see a lot of these pieces and other ones. But Raj, we mentioned tonight we've got Hick Dog, Hickory, and Coil in heat number 1. And I know the website will be updated. So who do we have in heat number 2? Heat 3 and Heat 4.
Heat 2, we got Ham, Joe Peters, and Windstar.
Awesome.
And I was a little bit looking forward to seeing Hick Dog and Windstar go against each other, but I guess that's not happening. And then day 3, we got Laceface, Icky, and Paco. And then in the end, we got Kurt B, Salt, and Mike Rahman.
Awesome. And all of these artists, for folks who are in the glass scene familiar at all, I mean, huge names. There are entire books written on all of them. There are in-depth interviews with all of them. Just an incredible caliber of artists, and we're really pumped to be able to hang out with all of them up here in person. We are going to be doing a lot of live drops throughout the week, so we encourage people to check it out. I know that we've got our correspondents. We've got Liam out there in the mix. We've got a bunch of people roving around. We saw Jeff confirmation. We've got visual confirmation, Dr. Whitestone out there milling about, so maybe we'll even get a cameo. But throughout the week, we're going to have a lot of these features and be talking to a lot of these artists individually. So we encourage you, ask questions, drop in the DMs, post, comment on the Instagram. Definitely follow us on the YouTube. And a big shout out one more time to all of our sponsors. We mentioned a couple of them. Glass Torch Technologies and Mood Mats. Other ones that we did not get to yet, the Min's Pipe Show, Highly Rooted, Forbin's Finest, Puffco, Green State Gardener, Magic Man, Bushy Beard Cultivation, High Seas Gallery, Somewhere on the Mountain. If you're not following, these are all excellent follows. So we will be repeating them throughout the week as well. Glass Alchemy, Canna Planters, Willie's Wood, Perky Planet, Moksha, Sticky Brand, The Scale, North Jersey Diamond Wheel. We just saw the formulation station upstairs. They are local. Appellation Farms, Stoked, Off-Piste Full Circle Microbes, an incredible lineup of companies making this possible, a lot of them right here in Vermont, and involved in the functional glass industry themselves. So a big shout out to our production team behind the decks, Tyler and Steven making this possible. A big thank you to the Bern Gallery team and all of our competitors. A big shout out. We cannot wait to get back with you tomorrow night for night 2 of the 15th Pipe Classic. For myself, Eli Harrington, my co-host Raj, we will see you all tomorrow night. Have a great night. Peace.